Barbara Halka, then chair of my department, encouraged me to respond to a new NCI initiative seeking to expand minority cancer control research. With her active assistance, a group of faculty, I won't list their names, proposed a program of studies which included Paul Godley's doctoral dissertation research on prostate cancer. The proposal included the plan to collaborate with the Minority Student Caucus's Minority Health Conference, but it turned out that the conference did not take place in 1989 and 1990. So Assistant Dean William T. Small Jr. met with the minority students to re-energize the caucus and the conference. When in 1991, ACE President Ray Greenberg announced his intention to create an ad hoc committee on minority affairs in the college, I volunteered to serve. Ray asked me to be chair. I was dubious, but committee member Sherman James encouraged me. Vic, you'll do what we tell you to, and we won't have to put in the time. The committee held its first meeting during the 1991 ACE annual meeting in Atlanta. Sherman, Bill Jenkins, and conference committee chair Gladys Reynolds were among those present. The meeting, with the theme Morbidity, Mortality Gap, Is It Race or Racism? And many powerful presentations, was a consciousness-raising experience for me and many. A few days later, SAFI, the Society for the Analysis of African American Public Health Issues, was created as an APHA-related organization. Bill Jenkins, who helped plan the 1991 ACE meeting, was a principal founder of SAFI. At one SAFI business meeting, someone suggested that I could become an honorary African American. During the 7 years, I chaired the Minority Affairs Committee. It drafted a statement of principles for the college, published 3 papers, and became a standing committee. I was elected to the board of directors and began to become involved in other areas of the college. When the college needed to change management firms in the late 1990s, and ACE President Sally Vernon asked me to download the website so it would not be lost. I then managed the college's website for several years and chaired the communications committee. I also chaired the finance committee for 1 year. Several years ago, I returned to the board a second time and served on the strategic planning committee. My work with the college over some 3 decades has been a continuing source of colleagueship and fulfillment, and has certainly advanced my career at home. My experience doing epidemiology research in African American populations led me to conclude that rather than leading such studies, I should work with African American principal investigators. I participated in collaborations led by Dorothy Brown, Adeora Adamora, and Paul Godley. Biostatistician Lloyd Edwards invited me to join his Minority Health Project, which presented an annual short course on minority health research, with portions broadcast via satellite. He left for Duke the following year, leaving me the project's leadership. My major innovation was to generate an email list with several thousand addresses I extracted from my collection of emails and used this to publicize the broadcast. Essentially, I was an early spammer. I also helped the Minority Health Conference to start webcasts of their keynote lecture. These 2 annual broadcasts have showcased leading health disparities researchers, many themselves underrepresented minorities, to thousands of students, researchers, and practitioners. After 20 years teaching the introductory epidemiology course for epidemiology majors, I was assigned to teach the required course for non-majors. Hundreds of students each year, in person and online. Although I never got around to doing research on TM, I have told my students and others in public health about it for many years. I also served on a scientific advisory board for an NIH-funded study. There are hundreds of published studies on TM. A significant problem with some of the literature, though, is a failure to differentiate between types of meditation, which risks muddying the waters. When I stopped teaching introductory epidemiology in the classroom 5 years ago, I teamed up with Bill Jenkins to teach a seminar course, Social Justice and Equality in Search of John Castle's Epidemiology, harkening back to the quote that I read before. I created a companion virtual library of resources on social justice and public health from a very broad perspective. If I can take an extra maybe 2 minutes. Life is complex. It represents emergent behavior from the interactions of billions of people, each with billions of neurons and trillions of other cells, in an environment with uncountable other organisms and influences. So we are always oversimplifying. Reductionism is essential to do anything, But thus we are always oversimplifying and looking at only a small slice of the outcomes when we make evidence-based decisions. Human behavior is the proximate or intermediate cause of many of our most vexing public health problems. We are well aware of that for behaviors regarded as unhelpful, like smoking. But we tend to ignore the many behaviors where the harm occurs to others or to the environment. A huge amount of suffering arises from greed, or even the ordinary functioning of our market economy and our huge investment pools, which support the retirement of those of us who are now retired. Toxic corporate and political behavior are destroying our social fabric, the efficacy of our institutions, and our environment. How can it be that with our sophisticated knowledge and technology, huge wealth, and rapid communications, so many of us are narrowly focused on getting more for ourselves, even at the cost of children's well-being and the sustainability of our ecosystem? For example, what leads some billionaires to mislead the public about climate change, while other billionaires donate to advance global health? That's an epidemiologic question. There are presumably determinants. Can epidemiology help us to understand not only the adverse impacts of these behaviors, but their etiology? Can epidemiology make use of expanded knowledge of neuropsychiatry and neurobiology to identify ways to broaden awareness, increase kindness and generosity, and reduce greed and other toxic behaviors? Now that I'm retired, I will have the luxury to think about these questions without having to worry about when you get funded. Hopefully, I'll even get to publish something. But in the meantime, I'll keep putting material in my virtual library at http://go.unc.edu/SJAE for social justice and equality. Perhaps I can inspire you to do the research that I haven't done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that presentation. Very exciting to hear about all the different things and the connections that you can make with colleagues, work, personal life, being part of society. Next, we're going to move to some of the publications awards, and so we have Michael Cook representing the Publications Committee, and he's going to give an award for the best overall paper published in the Annals of Epi and the best student paper, and then he'll also give the poster award.
Thanks, Anna. So my name is Michael Cook. I'm from NCI, and I'm standing here on behalf of the Publications Committee that has these 3 awards. The first 2 awards, I don't think either of them are actually here, but we can still applaud, and hopefully they'll feel some of the good vibes in them. The 2 papers are for the best paper in the last year of the Annals of Epidemiology. So all of the papers that are published in the prior year, so 2017, have been reviewed in an extremely rigorous process. And we end up with the best article, which is not restricted to anybody in terms of their experience or status. But we have added a second award, which we gave out for the first time last year, which is for a junior investigator and is restricted to individuals that have less than 5 years experience post their final degree. And so the best paper in the Annals of Epidemiology for the 2017 year goes to Kirsten Hess from the CDC. And this is for her paper, Lifetime Risk of a Diagnosis of HIV Infection in the United States. The second award for the best paper from a junior investigator goes to Rufan Yao from the University of Maryland. And this is for the paper Association Between Gestational Weight Gain and Risk of Stillbirth, a Population-Based Cohort Study. And the final award from the Publications Committee goes to the best poster that is presented at our annual meeting. And I'm happy to say that this is going to Alexander Evans from the CDC for the poster Space-Time Analysis of Unintentional Drug Overdoses in the City of Cincinnati 2007 to 2017. Congratulations.